all want to be in the know, right? But sometimes it feels like trying to drink from a fire hose. Well, that's why we're here, to help you sort through the noise and get to the really interesting stuff.
Absolutely.
And today's deep dive, well, let's just say it involves national security, a popular messaging app, and a whole lot of head scratching. We're talking about sensitive U.S. military information, the kind you'd think would be locked down tight, somehow ending up on Signal the app that, many of us use to chat with friends and family.
Yeah, strange one.
Really strange. And our main source for this deep dive is a CBS News report. It lays out this whole situation involving Jeffrey Goldberg. He's the editor of The Atlantic. You probably know him.
Right.
And he finds himself, unexpectedly, in a Signal group chat about U.S. plans to conduct airstrikes in Yemen. It's the kind of story that makes you wonder about, well, a lot of things, like how secure is sensitive information, and what role does the press play when something like this happens.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We'll walk through the events, try to figure out why this is a much bigger deal than just a little slip-up, and see what it tells us about the ways we communicate in high-pressure, high-stakes environments.
Okay, so let's jump right into this. According to the report, it all starts on March 11th. Jeffrey Goldberg, a well-known journalist, gets added to this Signal group chat, like a normal message request, right?
Right.
And the invitation came from, get this, National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. And Goldberg accepts. I mean, wouldn't you?
I think most people would, yeah. You see a message request, you accept.
Exactly. So he's in this group, which was labeled Houthi PC Small Group. Now, there's a screenshot published in The Atlantic, and it shows Waltz as the admin of the group, and JG, almost certainly Jeffrey Goldberg, is listed as a member.
Okay, so right off the bat, we've got some questions. Waltz is the one who apparently added Goldberg to this group.
That's what it looks like.
But here's where it gets really weird. Waltz is quoted in the CBS report saying he has no clue who Goldberg is, has never even met him, and he doesn't stop there. He calls Goldberg some pretty nasty names, like the bottom scum of journalists.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty harsh words for someone you supposedly don't know.
Totally. But the story doesn't end there. Photos pop up from an event at the French embassy back in 2021. And guess who's in them? Together.
Waltz and Goldberg.
Waltz and Goldberg, smiling and chatting. And Goldberg's response to this is, if your eyeballs see us together, then I guess your eyeballs are seeing us together. I mean, what else can you say?
Right. It's hard to deny photographic evidence. It makes you wonder why Waltz would deny knowing Goldberg so strongly, especially when they've clearly interacted before.
Yeah, it just adds another layer of weirdness to this whole thing. And it doesn't stop there. Waltz then tries to explain this whole situation away by saying maybe Goldberg added himself to the group, or maybe it was some kind of technical glitch. Goldberg, understandably, calls those explanations crazy.
Nah.
I mean, how do you accidentally add yourself to a private Signal group?
Right. And even a technical glitch. Signal's pretty secure. You need the person's phone number, a QR code, or their username to add them. It's not like accidentally bumping into the wrong meeting room.
Exactly. So the question is, why was Goldberg's contact info even in Waltz's phone? And why was Goldberg added to a group discussing something as sensitive as military operations?
Really makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. Now let's talk about what was actually being discussed in this chat. The report says that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth allegedly shared some pretty detailed information about planned U.S. airstrikes in Yemen. We're not talking vague stuff here. We're talking about when the fighter jets were scheduled to take off, what kinds of weapons they were going to use. This is highly specific operational information.
That's a huge red flag right there. It's not just that this information was shared on Signal, but the level of detail. Sharing the specifics of a military operation before it happens, that could compromise the mission, put lives at risk. I mean, imagine if that information fell into the wrong hands. It doesn't matter that these strikes happened before Goldberg was added to the group. The fact that this kind of information was being shared so casually, it's a serious breach of protocol.
Right. And this is where Goldberg's actions become really interesting. The report says he waited over a week after the strikes before he even mentioned he was part of this group chat. His initial report on the Monday after the strikes was really careful. He described the conversation in general terms, didn't include any of the really sensitive details. It seems like he was trying to balance his responsibility to inform the public with the need to protect national security.
That's responsible journalism. He recognized the sensitivity of the situation and didn't just rush to publish. But then, according to the report, things take another turn. President Trump and some of the others in the chat downplay the whole thing, saying the information wasn't classified. So Goldberg actually goes back to the administration, asks them if there's anything that needs to be redacted before he publishes the messages.
It seems like he's really trying to do his due diligence here. So why does he ultimately decide to go public with all of this?
Well, he explains it in the report. He says it's a matter of the public's right to know about a potential massive security breach. He wants people to be able to judge for themselves what happened here.
Makes sense.
And he also raises a really important point about Signal being an open source messaging app. That means the code is out there, anyone can see it. And while that's great for transparency, it also makes it a potential target for hackers, for people who want to exploit those vulnerabilities. It's just not as secure as the kinds of systems the government should be using for this kind of communication.
Right, Signal's great for everyday use, but maybe not for discussing top-secret military operations.
Right, exactly.
And Goldberg doesn't hold back. He has some pretty pointed questions in the report. If I'm such a nefarious character, why am I in Mike Waltz's phone? Why does he have my phone number? Why is he including me in this chat? And what do you expect a reporter to do when you learn interesting information about the way an administration is contemplating military action? What do they really think is going to happen?
That's a good point, right? If Waltz really thought Goldberg was a threat, why add him to this group in the first place?
Absolutely. Those questions really expose the inconsistencies in Waltz's explanations. It makes you think about why Goldberg was added to the group in the first place, and then why there was so much effort to downplay the whole situation. And there's even more to this story. The report mentions, kind of briefly, that a top Republican senator is calling for a watchdog investigation into this. And it also says that the NSA, the National Security Agency, had actually warned about security vulnerabilities in Signal just a month before all of this happened. These little details suggest that this is way bigger than just one group chat gone wrong.
Yeah, this is pointing to a much larger issue. It raises questions about how the government handles sensitive information, about the security protocols that are or maybe aren't in place. And it also makes you think about whether government officials should even be using these kinds of commercially available apps for communicating about highly classified matters. I mean, government systems are designed with security in mind. They have audit trails, layers of protection that something like Signal just doesn't have.
It's a whole can of worms, isn't it?
It really is.
And for Goldberg, this whole situation must have been a minefield. As a journalist, you're supposed to inform the public, but you also don't want to jeopardize national security. It seems like he really tried to handle this carefully, but the denials, the nature of the information itself, he must have felt like he had no choice but to publish.
That's the tightrope journalists walk all the time, balancing the public's right to know with the need to protect sensitive information. In this case, it seems like Goldberg decided that the potential security breach, the way this sensitive information was being handled, that it outweighed the risks of publishing.
So let's sum up what we've learned here. We've got the editor of a major publication added to a Signal group chat about a planned military operation by a national security advisor who then claims he doesn't even know the guy.
Yeah.
We've got highly specific details about the operation being shared in this chat. And then, after some back and forth denials, attempts to downplay the whole thing, the editor publishes the messages saying the public has a right to know about this potential security risk.
And it really highlights the complexities of communication in our digital world, especially when you add in national security. We need to think about how information is handled, about the protocols that are in place, and whether they're actually working. And we also have to consider the tension between transparency and the need to protect sensitive information. It's not a simple issue.
Not at all. And this whole deep dive, it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. In this world of instant communication, with technology changing all the time, where do we draw the line between national security, convenience, and the public's right to know? And what responsibility do those in power have to safeguard information, to choose the right ways to communicate? It's something to keep thinking about even after this deep dive is over.
Definitely food for thought.
It really is.
Yeah.